Although the Sioux Empire United Way claims that its commitment to equity as its core value is not ideological, it's difficult to see how its acceptance and promotion of gender ideology is anything but ideological. Page 5 of the Sioux Empire United Way's DEI guidebook states that, at a minimum, in order to review progress on DEI goals, organizations need to collect demographic data. It then shows how the application questions reflect this goal of funded agencies demonstrating their growing commitment to focus on equity. An explanation for how to comply with this gender ideology is included with the pronouns application question. It states that this is a new addition to the Sioux Empire United Way's data portion of the application, that this change reflects the Sioux Empire United Way's push towards further inclusion, and that as the idea of gender evolves, that data collection needs to evolve with it. The Sioux Empire United Way also boldly and publicly affirmed that they believe in celebrating diversity, fostering inclusion, and promoting equity as the foundation of their work by celebrating Pride Month on their Facebook page. But precisely what ideology is the Sioux Empire United Way promoting in their allyship with the LGBTQ movement? To answer that question, we need to examine the work of Susan Williams, founder and executive director of the Transformation Project, who is on the Sioux Empire United Way's DEI committee. The Transformation Project recently partnered with Sanford Health to co-sponsor the 3rd Annual Midwest Gender Identity Summit. Although we repeatedly hear the claim that diversity, equity, and inclusion work is not ideological, you can clearly see that one of the general sessions of this summit is on DE&I, and was led by Sanford's DE&I director, Natasha Smith. You can also see the use of debunked DEI terminology like implicit bias. The summit also included a session on the World Professional Association for Transgender Health's Standards of Care version 8. This updated standards of care by WPATH eliminates what they consider to be unnecessary barriers to care for children. So they removed the minimum age requirements and lowered the requirements for hormonal treatment before surgical interventions and require only one visit and letter from a healthcare provider to begin life-altering treatment. WPATH justified their removing these age restrictions for children as a way to ensure greater access to care for more people. They also bragged that by redefining their gold standard of care, providers and institutions are now primed to solicit more resources to improve access to care for young people. In other words, profits are going to exponentially increase for medical providers like Sanford Health, now that government-funded programs and insurance companies have fewer restrictions to limit or restrict funding these procedures for kids. The new guidelines also include a new gender identity called Unix. Chapter 9 of WPATH's New Standards of Care cites the basis for this new category of unique-identified people as the Unique Archive. The Unique Archive is a website hosting a large collection of fictional narratives about genital mutilation, nearly 4,000 of which involve depictions of minors. Two key members of this castration fetish group are Thomas W. Johnson and Richard J. Wassersug. Johnson is cited 16 times, and Wassersug 18 times, in the WPATH Standards of Care devoted to Unix. Curiously absent from this entire Standards of Care is any reference to caring for the growing number of detransitioners, people who regret the decision they made to irreversibly harm and mutilate their bodies with so-called gender-affirming care when they were children. One courageous member of this fast-growing group of detransitioners is Chloe Cole. Chloe testified in favor of House Bill 1080, banning gender-affirming care for minors in South Dakota, and also testified before the House Judiciary Committee.
The gender specialist I was taken to see told my parents that I needed to be put on puberty-blocking drugs right away. They asked my parents a simple question: would you rather have a dead daughter or a living transgender son? The choice was enough for my parents to let their guard down, and in retrospect, I can't blame them. This was the moment that we all became victims of so-called gender-affirming care. I was fast-tracked onto puberty blockers and then testosterone. The resulting menopausal-like hot flashes made focusing on school impossible. I still get joint pains and weird pops in my back, but they were far worse when I was on the blockers. A month later, when I was 13, I had my first testosterone injection. It's caused permanent changes to my body. My voice will forever be deeper, my jawline sharper, my nose longer, my bone structure permanently masculinized, my Adam's apple more prominent, my fertility unknown. I look in the mirror sometimes and I feel like a monster. I had a double mastectomy at 15. They tested my amputated breast for cancer. And I was cancer-free, of course. I was perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong with my still developing body or my breasts, other than that, as an insecure teenage girl, I felt awkward about it. After my breasts were taken away from me, the tissue was incinerated. Before I was able to legally drive, I had a huge part of my future womanhood taken from me. I will never be able to breastfeed. I struggle to look at myself in the mirror at times. I still struggle to this day with sexual dysfunction. And I have massive scars across my chest, and the skin grafts that they took of my nipples are weeping fluid today, and they were grafted into a more masculine positioning, they said. After surgery, my grades in school plummeted. Everything that I went through did nothing to address my underlying mental health issues that I had. And my doctors, with their theories on gender, thought that all my problems would go away as soon as I was surgically transformed into something that vaguely resembled a boy. Their theories were wrong. The drugs and surgeries changed my body, but they did not and could not change the basic reality that I am and forever will be a female. When my specialist first told my parents that they could have a dead daughter or a live transgender son, I wasn't suicidal. I was a happy child who struggled because she was different. However, at 16, after my surgery, I did become suicidal. I'm doing better now, but my parents almost got the dead daughter promised to them by my doctors. My doctors had almost created the very nightmare they said they were trying to avoid. So what message do I want to bring to American teenagers and their families? I didn't need to be lied to. I needed compassion. I needed to be loved. I needed to be given therapy to help me work through my issues, not affirm to my delusion that by transforming into a boy, it would solve all my problems. We need to stop telling 12-year-olds that they were born wrong, that they are right to reject their own bodies and feel uncomfortable with their own skin. We need to stop telling children that puberty is an option, that they can choose what kind of puberty they will go through, just so they can choose what clothes to wear or what music to listen to. Puberty is a rite of passage to adulthood, not a disease to be mitigated. Today, I should be at home with my family celebrating my 19th birthday, and instead I'm making a desperate plea to my elected representatives. Learn the lessons from other medical scandals like the opioid crisis, to recognize that doctors are human too, and sometimes they are wrong. My childhood was ruined along with thousands of detransitioners that I know through our networks. This needs to stop. You alone can stop it. Enough children have already been victimized by this barbaric pseudoscience. Please let me be your final warning. Thank you.
The UK's Gender Identity Development Service reported a 20-fold increase in referrals over the course of the last decade. A 2021 study from the UK and a similar 2018 Dutch study show that 98% of children who take puberty blockers go on to take cross-sex hormones, the final step before beginning elective surgeries. And when it comes to gender dysphoric children, there is little evidence that medical transition, including puberty blockers, decreases suicide rates. A peer-reviewed examination of adolescents suffering from gender dysphoria showed no statistical difference in improvement in psychological functioning between the group prescribed puberty blockers and the group given therapy. However, a prominent study showed that after sexual reassignment surgery, transsexual clients were 4.9 times more likely to have made a suicide attempt and 19.1 times more likely to have died from suicide after adjusting for prior psychiatric comorbidity. Although preferred pronouns are promoted by transgender activists as simply showing respect, it is just one form of social transition, which also includes changing names, bathrooms, and clothing. Pediatric transition doctors in the Netherlands, who first pioneered the use of puberty blockers in dysphoric children, observed that social transition correlates with an increase in young people's persistence when it comes to changing their gender identity. This led them to caution against social transition before puberty. A paper in the Journal of the Association for Child and Adolescent Mental Health concluded that gender dysphoria is more persistent where social transition has occurred, and asserts that social transition is a psychosocial intervention which might be characterized as iatrogenic, a medical problem caused by the treatment itself. After gender-affirming medical care for minors was outlawed in South Dakota, the Transformation Project started the SD Trans Resilience Fund. Although it does not cover medical expenses, this fund provides direct financial assistance to transgender minors traveling out of state for gender-affirming medical care. It also provides gift cards for transgender South Dakotans to purchase gender-affirming undergarments. Gender-affirming undergarments include chest binders for girls and tucking underwear for boys. Chest binders are designed to flatten breasts to create a more masculine-looking chest. However, there is a wide array of negative health effects associated with chest binding, ranging from chronic pain to rib fractures. A 2016 study in the Journal of Respiratory Physiology found that transgender individuals using chest binders have abnormal lung function. Tucking involves compressing male genitals into the groin or up between the legs to produce a flat, feminine appearance. However, there are case studies of both infertility and testicular torsion occurring from tucking. Testicular torsion results in an orchiectomy rate of 42% in boys undergoing surgery for testicular torsion. An orchiectomy is a surgical procedure in which one or both of the testicles are removed.
My childhood was ruined, along with thousands of detransitioners that I know through our networks. This needs to stop. You alone can stop it. Enough children have already been victimized by this barbaric pseudoscience. Please let me be your final warning. Thank you.